Welcome to Relaxing with Watercolor. I'm Anna. Today we're painting a mountain valley and filling it with springtime details. If you'd like to paint along, take a peek at the description for a list of materials. To begin, let's make our sky. I've lightly applied some water here and there to the top half of my paper. I'm going to apply a small amount of blue to those watery areas and let it spread. This will create patches of light blue for the sky. By creating our sky this way, we'll end up with negative space clouds, which really make the piece come alive. As the sky and the clouds begin to emerge, you can start adding some depth by applying a little more blue to the bottom edge of some of the clouds. This creates a shadow effect and gives the clouds more fluff. So for my springtime scene, I'd like to create a dreamy effect. So I'm going to apply a pink haze to my sky. To do this, I'm going to load my brush with water and take a very small amount of magenta on the tip. I'll test the color intensity on my workspace, and once the color is light enough, I'll work it into the blue of my sky, starting with the bottom of the clouds and then pulling the color across the page here and there. It doesn't need to be an even application, I just want touches of pink. I'm happy with the pink haze, so I'm going to move on to the foreground. But before I do, I'm going to establish my horizon line. I'm taking a tiny bit of magenta and a brown for a hazy, shadowy effect in the distance. Since it's springtime in this mountain valley, let's add some flowers, starting with daffodils. For abstract daffodils, I like to hold my brush vertically and zigzag it to create a small block of color with a ruffled top which resembles the cup daffodils have. Then I create a small V around the cup using the shape of the brush, and voila, a daffodil blossom, an abstract daffodil blossom. You can use whatever color you like. Today I've chosen the classic daffodil yellow. And remember, as you're adding your flowers, you can create depth by making the flowers close to the bottom of the paper larger and those closer to the horizon line smaller. This creates a sense of distance. I like the number and spacing of these daffodils, so I'm going to move on and add some poppies now. I'm going to keep today's abstract poppies simple by adding a red circle to start. Once the circle has dried, I'll go back and add a black dot to create the center. Finally, it's not really a mountain valley without some lupine. For abstract lupine, I'm going to load up my brush with a soft blue and press it onto the paper to create the tip of a flower stalk. Then, I'm going to repeat that technique, moving down at an angle on either side of the tip to create the full stalk. I've finished with the lupine, so now I'm going to go back to the poppies and add a black dot to each one for the center. These blossoms are looking lovely, so now let's add some fresh meadow grass. I'm going to start with a bright yellow green with a good amount of water on the brush so the color isn't too concentrated. I'll loosely apply this around the flowers for a messy, wild look. I like the amount of bright green coverage, so now I'm going to switch to a deeper green and apply that to the edges of the meadow. I'll work my way in and let the color naturally fade as I get closer to the middle. This creates a vignette effect and draws the eye to the center of the painting. It also gives that feeling of a sunbreak on a cloudy day. Okay, we're all done with the painting portion of this piece. So if you've been painting along, go ahead and take a break to let your piece dry, and then we'll get down to some doodling. And we're back. Grab your ink pen. Let's do this. I'm going to start my doodling by adding some definition to the clouds, mostly to the bottom edges to add weight. I'm careful not to create any closed shapes while I'm doing this, since we'd lose some of the openness that we want for this sprawling meadow scene. I am going to add some definition to the tops of the clouds for balance, but those lines are going to be much lighter and more disconnected. We just want a hint of the shape. Our eyes will do the rest. Alright, clouds are finished, so I'm going to work on the horizon line, which now has a few peaks on it since we added our grass. I'm going to turn these into trees, mostly pine, but I'll add a deciduous tree or two. And to create the trees, I'm outlining the peak and then scribbling in whatever texturing I'd like to see, but feel free to doodle as you please. Also, we can't really call this a mountain meadow if there are no mountains, so I'm going to draw in a few peaks just beyond the trees. Now it's time for some flower detailing. I'm going to start with the poppies by outlining the red circle and then adding black dots to the center. For both the lupine and the daffodils, I'm going to loosely outline the outer edges of the blossoms. I'm intentionally making mine a little messy and whimsical because I like the look and I think it fits the scene. Next, I'm going to give each flower a simple straight line stem. Again, this is to add to the whimsy. And finally, we'll add leaves. For the daffodils, I'm doodling in a thick V around the stem. For the lupines, I'm adding additional outlines in the same shape as the flower, but a little bigger. And then for the poppies, I'm making streamer-like lines that shoot out from the stems. But remember, this is your doodle, so you doodle whatever you want to do. Oh, and one more thing, meadow grass. We need to make meadow grass. So to do this, I'm going to draw triangle tops between the flowers, making them larger and darker toward the bottom of the frame, and then making them lighter and smaller as I get closer to the horizon line. We want to leave the impression of a vast, lush meadow where the sun is shining, the clouds float on by, and the flowers are in full bloom at the foot of the mountains. And there you have it, a beautiful mountain meadow. I hope you've enjoyed painting and doodling with me today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, take care.